7:36, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. Weather today, a high of 39, low of 19. Sunny as well right now, 20 degrees at Super Talk 99.7. Got a lot to cover in this segment. Did you see what Donald Trump posted yesterday? He says, for far too long, we have relied on taxing our great people using the Internal Revenue Service, of course, the IRS, through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements. The American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing ourselves. Trump posted, it is time for that to change. He says, I am today announcing that I will create the External Revenue Service to collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. We'll begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they'll start paying finally their fair share. He says January 20th of 2025 will be the birth date of the External Revenue Service. Make America great again. That's Donald Trump. Now, coming up at 8:05, our friend E.J. Antoni is going to be joining us. He, of course, from the Heritage Foundation and also Fox News, and he is going to talk a little bit about a number of different things. Number one, Joe Biden and his absolutely ridiculous farewell letter this morning, where he says that the economy is prosperous and, you know, we've been prosperous over the last 4 years. Inflation is coming down. Doesn't really talk much about the price of things. He says inflation is coming down. Biden also saying that America is more secure than ever before, among other things. And so we're going to talk to E.J. Antoni about that coming up at 8:05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. As far as the Pete Hegseth confirmation hearings, there's a lot to talk about and some audio that I have not yet been able to play. One of the, I thought, more fascinating moments was, and we played part of this conversation with Brian Wilson. I want to play the rest of it. Crazy Hirono, asking this BS question about his supposed alcoholism.
Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
And so she is trying clearly to prove that he is a drunk. And he combated it, as he should. But then she asked him this absolutely ridiculous question.
And frankly, as secretary, you will be on the job 24/7. You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed, correct?
Absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
So you know what she just said? She said that you cannot have a glass of wine, you cannot have a beer watching a football game, you can do none of that. She said this is a 24/7 position, and if you are caught drinking, do you promise to resign? I mean, there's a reason why folks call her Crazy Hirono. And as I said before, and I've said a number of different times today, she does. She sounds drunk. And I thought it was fascinating, Brian, talking about what goes on in Congress, where they have those little areas. I don't think he called them their getaway places, where they could just go and they could just have a few drinks and then come down and make their votes. And they may have been a little snockered. And I love that Senator Mullen called him out on that. I thought that was great.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign
serving.
as Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf
job?
of the men and women I'm serving.
I'm not
because it's
hearing-
the most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on.
Thank you. Thank the Lord. Crazy Hirono. We're also talking about Tim Kaine. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was Tim Kaine went after Pete Hegseth's marriages. And of course, all of this during the Senate confirmation hearings yesterday of Pete Hegseth. Let's just be honest. They're going after Hegseth because he's Donald Trump's nominee. So it is clear, and Brian mentioned it, and I mentioned it earlier in the program. I've been talking about this for a long time. Obviously, Matthew heard as well. where the Democrats, they haven't learned. They have not learned. And I love it. I just think, you know what? We're all here for it. Let's just watch the crazy continue to spiral out of control.
I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, I'm not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
In other words, blank off Tim Kaine. I mean, listen, I'm not defending infidelity. I'm not. But as many folks have pointed out, the so easy putt here. Got anything to say about Bill Clinton? Tim Kaine, as Brian pointed out, the running mate of Hillary Clinton. Clearly he knows Bill and he knows all of his infidelities. Anybody want to talk about Kamala Harris's husband? Democrats, they've been awfully quiet about Kamala's husband, about how he knocked up the nanny way back when he was married. Did Tim Kaine have anything to say about that? So all of this hand-wringing, all of this worry about Pete Hegseth's womanizing and this supposed drinking, and I do love what Chris Cuomo had to say last night on his show.
How many people on that committee, how many in Congress could pass the Kaine test that you can't honor an oath to serve if you've ever been unfaithful? Kaine may be sitting in that room alone. Who cares when we are talking about being the top warrior, not our pastor? Now,
Joan, you said that, and Brian mentioned it too, that Tim Kaine, he looked a little disheveled. Now, I have not seen it, but I mean, was his hair askew and his tie crooked? I mean, how bad was it?
He looked like Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
Did he really?
His hair was, messy, which I've never seen him with unkempt hair before.
Right.
And he was kind of slouchy. I don't know how to explain that more, but I think I think we were all kind of used to the persona that we saw on stage all the time with Hillary Clinton. And the person that I knew was always well kempt because he's a politician. He's out there meeting people. He's no John Fetterman, you know.
I can walk in there right now with a picture and give you your immediate reaction if you want me to.
You know what? Just text it to me.
Okay.
Text me a picture.
Oh, good.
7:45, Nashville's Morning News. What did Pete Hegseth have to say about our military readiness? Details straight ahead. 7:45, time to check the roads on WTN. Weather today, a high of 39, sunny. Right now, 21 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I loved what his opening lines were, Pete Hegseth.
The Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors.
He had a great 4 minutes. And yes, the Biden Defense Department has been politicized with DEI and very questionable actions. You've got $114 million spent on DEI initiatives within Joe Biden's Department of Defense. $114 million. Biden signed an executive order demanding DEI policies in all departments, including the Department of Defense. And so he is absolutely right. The DOD ended up contracting with other organizations to implement DEI, critical race theory, and all of that other absolute nonsense.
We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapon system, every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying. And every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit.
Yeah, it's a big question. Here's a big question. Is our military ready for wars with Russia and China? The answer to that is no. You know, it used to be that a good marker as to whether or not our military was in good condition was if we could fight 2 wars at one time. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if we could fight one. We've had recruitment issues. We keep missing our goals. We have ships and planes that are getting older and older. We've got budget issues that are preventing us from modernizing our fleet. Did you know that they're cutting the hours of pilots as they train? Which means that there's a very good possibility that they're not actually ready for combat because they're cutting those training hours. And let's also not forget they lost a lot of good soldiers when they fired them for not taking the vaccines across the military. And a lot of this points right back to the wrong priorities under Joe Biden. That focus on social issues and DEI is killing morale and it is killing our military. And there's a lot of talk about Pete Hegseth's resume.
Now, it is true and has been acknowledged that I don't have a similar biography to defense secretaries of the last 30 years. But as President Trump also told me, we've repeatedly placed people atop the Pentagon with supposedly the right credentials, whether they are retired generals, academics, or defense contractor executives. And where has it gotten us? He believes, and I humbly agree, that it's time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm.
I mean, I love that. And he said, where has it gotten us? Because everybody talks about Lloyd Austin. You know, he was a general and just comes in. He's got all the bars and all the medals and all that kind of stuff, you know, puffed out chest and all that. But when he asks, where has it gotten us? I just told you all of the problems right now within the Biden Department of Defense, courtesy of Joe Biden and Lloyd Austin. Now, one thing Hegseth doesn't have is time on the boards of Raytheon, part of the military-industrial complex. Lloyd Austin was actually part of the board. So, by the way, it's not a Biden thing necessarily. So was Mark Esper, Trump's Secretary of Defense from July 2019 to November of 2020. He was actually a senior executive at Raytheon. So I love the fact that you've got Pete Hegseth and some Republicans who were calling out the whole contact with Raytheon that Lloyd Austin and others have had. Pete Hegseth was busy fighting on the front lines. And in case you're just joining us, it does look like Pete Hegseth will actually be confirmed. It is 7:50 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can always check us out on the socials. You can see the radio show as well. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and at the website, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here. You know, my entire life, I have dealt with the hassles of glasses and contacts. And as I've gotten older, my eyesight has been getting worse and worse. Now, issues driving at night, reading small fonts and halos around lights, downright frustrating. And I can't keep living like this. I've talked about my struggles on the air, actually. Well, that's why I'm now thankful to have found Dr. Horn and the team at Vision for Life. Now, they've helped thousands take control of their vision, and I'm now excited to be one of them. After discussing lens replacement with Dr. Horn and how the procedure can correct both near and far vision while eliminating my cataracts for good, I knew that I had to take this leap. Now, stay tuned as I'll be sharing my journey with you every step of the way. Now, if you're dealing with these same struggles, if all of this sounds really familiar to you, you owe it to yourself to check out Vision for Life and see why they were voted Nashville's best ophthalmologist. Call them today at 615-436-2020. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. As always, 615-436-2020. Find them online, visionforlife.com. That's visionforlife.com. Dan Mandis here, 7:51. Joan Jones, what's coming up in the news at 8?
Well, a tragedy after a car breaks down in Antioch last night. Also, we'll take a why the government is going after Elon Musk again. That's coming up at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.